Testing. بسم الله. دكتور فاني وزير المناخي. السيدات والسادة عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I would like to welcome you first in the state of Qatar, origins of the nations, for change in Sharm el-Sheikh. In the state of Qatar and the previous COP sends a clear message about in supporting international efforts related to climate change and environmental sustainability, which is made the response to our Qatar National Vision of 2030, which has made environmental development one of its 4 pillars, in a way that ensures various requirements for protection. In light of Qatar's national strategy for the environment and climate change, which provides a framework to work towards environmental sustainability goals, this event comes in which I would like to invite His Excellency Sheikh bin Nasser Al Thani, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, to deliver his speech on the occasion of this event.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, I would like to welcome you first in the pavilion of the state of Qatar, on the margins of the 27th Conference of United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP27, in which the participation of the state of Qatar came to continuing of the series of previous participations in the previous conference, which mainly come from our full belief in the role of the state of Qatar, the supporting international effort related to the climate change and environmentally sustainability. From this platform, I am pleased to announce the launch of the Environment Sustainability Program, which is an important milestone in our journey towards environment sustainability in the state of Qatar. Since the launch of the Qatar National Strategy of the Environment and the Climate Change last year, we did spray any effort exploring ways to support the implementation of our national strategy and achieve its objectives. In this context, the Environment Sustainability Program, which is an initiative developed by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change to achieve the objective of Qatar National Strategy for Environment and Climate Change, and organize and coordinate to the national efforts, which will thus ensure the achievement of the Qatar National Vision 2030. The Ministry of Environment and Climate Change has planned to launch this initiative in multiple phases approach, which with an aim to producing guiding frameworks that are based on the best international parties, along with the highest and most reliable international standards, and rely as well on the cooperation to everyone to achieve our ambitions and goals related to the climate and environmental sustainability. Therefore, we count on the fact that this initiative will draw another perspective on environment sustainability report in wide spectrum to sector of we have I defined it with initiative framework. In this context, we would like to launch an online platform that allows everyone to include their green and sustainability initiative, which fall under priority focus areas by the Qatar National Strategy and Environment and Climate Change, namely reducing the greenhouse gases emission, sustainable water management, biodiversity, improving land productivity, and utilizing waste management and circular economy. In conclusion, I would like to state that we count on everyone to support this initiative to advance in our environment sustainability journey in Qatar. And I would like to thank you for all attendance and invite you to take a tour in our pavilion and participate in our side events that showcase Qatar achievement and contribution in environmental sustainability area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And for now, we would like to invite you all to look at the launch video of the sustainable program.
المتكامل العمل تعزيز والآن البيئة والتغير وهو أكثر فعالية وتوفير مستقبل مستقبل وكل مع وزارة
Ladies and gentlemen, since the launch of the Qatar National Strategy 2030, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change has been developing an initiative that will achieve the objectives of the strategy and highlight the efforts and activities of everyone in various tracks and dimensions of environmental sustainability. Thank you for your attention, and now watch this video introducing the logo and the slogan of the Environmental Initiative, which comes under the title of Our Sustainable Environment. Now I would like to invite His Excellency Sheikh Dr. Faleh bin Nasser Al Thani, Minister of Environment and Climate Change of the State of Qatar, and Coleman Hans from the Al Atiyah Foundation, Sultan Zoda from the Special Envoy of the President of the Republic of Tajikistan, and I would also like to invite Abdurrahman Mohsen, the Executive Secretary of the Intergovernmental ICC. Thank you all for joining us. I would like to begin by asking Dr. Faleh a couple of questions, starting with how important is sustainability?
In Qatar, we start our strategy last year, and the sustainability is very important pillar in our strategy. In the state of Qatar, all our stakeholders, and talking about the Ministry of Municipalities and Qatar Energy, transportation, all of these stakeholders is very important to implement this strategy. We tried as much as we can to, Qatar to maximize our usage of natural resources. Since Qatar, they have very limited natural resources, we try to maximize our recycling of all type of products. You're talking about the soil. For example, there is the stadium here. 40% of all the materials coming from recycled materials, and this is, I believe, is a big achievement in the state of Qatar, to using this construction materials and 40%. Our target in the state of Qatar to increase it to 80% with our national program of sustainability. Thank you.
And now I would like to ask Sultan Rahmazoda from the Special Envoy of the President of Republic of Tajikistan a couple of questions. Could you please tell us about your United Nations 2023 Water Conference?
Thank you very much for inviting me and joining this session. Good afternoon, everybody, and Mr. Minister and our initiate environmental sustainability initiative, a very good idea, which basically could serve as a good commitment for the UN 2023 conference, as you mentioned. The UN 2023 conference will be held next March in New York and hosted by Tajikistan and the Netherlands. And this conference is already historical, since it will be the second water-dedicated conference of the UN in the history of this organization, and the first one after all. The first ever water conference hosted by UN, it was 1977 in Argentina, Mar del Plata. And the main objectives of this conference: to accelerate actions to achieve water-related goals, 6 other water-related, international agreed water-related goals. And of sustainable development, that's why we need today to accelerate our actions. What is important for our life, it's important for achieving the sustainable development, but we know all actions, it would be impossible to achieve those actions. We were doubling our efforts to achieve water-related goals, SDG 6 and other water-related goals, but today we are talking about quadruple efforts, because those efforts we put on ground to achieve the water-related goals, it was not enough. Today we need more regard. That's why some are working hard of this process, to have the successful conference next year. So collaborative work with the support of the UNDESA and UN Water 2 years ago almost, and we have been using the platform of different events, including COP26 in Glasgow, the 9 World Water Forum in Senegal, 4th Asia Pacific Water Summit in Japan, the Dushanbe Water Conference in June this year in Tajikistan, and of course we are using the platform of COP27 for promoting of the water conference, to run the conference and to explain why this conference is important for the world community. So in June, we mostly were focused on raising the awareness, the importance, the main goals and objectives of the conference. But the conference, we launched Water Action Agenda. One of the outcomes conference in March next year which will be commitments from different countries, from member states, from the financial institutions, UN entities, and even individuals, which could be progress for achieve the the SDG 6 and other water-related goals. So so far a lot, and on 25th of October in New York meeting, so President of the General Assembly hosted a meeting where the 5 themes of the interactive dialogues of the conference, and they are health, which includes basically sanitation, hygiene, including the impact of the COVID-19 and others. The second, water for development, which is basically the valuing water, water nexus, IWRM, the water and the food nexus, and the third, water for climate resilience and environment, including the disaster risk reduction and etc. And the fourth one is the water for cooperation, which includes basically transboundary water cooperation, cross-sectoral cooperation, and the cooperation even among the SDGs. And the fifth one is about the water decade itself, how we can accelerate our actions and the commitments towards achieving the goals of the water decade, including through the implementation of the Secretary General of the United Nations in terms of the implementation of the decade. We hope the community will. Yesterday it was a water. Basically, the first time in the history of the COP when one of the thematic day of the COP was the water. It was a big discussion around the sessions, around the different pavilions, and in bilaterals, multilaterals meetings, and we received a lot of comments and commitments from different partners in this process. So the discussion here will make a great contribution to the success of the 2023 conference, and we are go in this process and having the successful conference in March next year is source of our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sultan. I'd now like to move on to Dr. Coleman Hans from Al-Atiyah Foundation. The first question being, can you tell us more about the efforts that the Al-Atiyah Foundation has towards sustainability?
Al-Atiyah Foundation are very pleased to support this excellent initiative by the ministry. We look closely at energy matters within Qatar. Obviously, Qatar being a massive carbon exporting country, it's a major part of what is dear to Qatar. And the initiatives such as this be followed by the public sector. Energy private sector in Qatar. A lot of the IOCs are doing a lot of work. And it's water and energy come hand in hand, especially in areas like Qatar. The majority of our water in Qatar is desalinized, and obviously we cannot desalinize the water without the energy industry. We use natural gas to more sustainable energy means, and we're using a massive solar plant that we just opened in Qatar. That will make a lot of the water come from a more sustainable means, but also a lot of water byproducts, which we're hoping to use a lot more and obviously maximize that rather than letting it go into waste. So that's kind of a foundation are working closely now, especially in the area of water and energy.
That's great. Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I'd like to move on to Abdullah Muhsin, the Executive Secretary of Intergovernmental on behalf of the IPCC. And I'd like to ask you, what's the role of the IPCC on sustainability?
Thank you. First, to thank Your Highness to invite these side events. And we are proud also to have our chair with me. He's my boss, so I'm a little bit shaking. So Yes, IPCC is, as you know, is drafting report, scientific report, and also our working group 3, who is in charge of mitigation and solution, delivered some key messages about sustainability. And I am, pleased to share with you some elements from this working group 3 report. And sometimes, because those reports are approved line by government, sometimes we are forced to follow exactly the messages in this report. Just to share with you some key messages from this working group 3 report. It is about transition in the context of sustainable development, accelerating mitigation into the context of sustainable development, involve expediting the space, the quality and depth of change, scale and breadth of change. The timing of mitigation, action and their effectiveness will have significant consequences for sustainable development. What is about the transition policies and processes, as it is coming from our reports? Transition decisions have far-reaching implications. Ambition mitigation pathways and sometimes disruptive changes in distribution with mitigation. There are challenges for limiting global warming 2 degrees C or below could stand considerable for fossil fuel infrastructure. And all reports is informing that the policies, integration and mitigation have many positive impact on many aspects of sustainable development goal. And this is very important. About sustainability has direct implication on sustainable development goal. I cannot go as a report which was approved. That means there are some aspects about sustainability, and any initiative should take in consideration what sometimes we should also talk about trade sustainable development goal. There are potential synergies between SDGs and action in the transport, industry, as well as demand-side measures. Synergies and trade-off depend on development context, scale of deployment. There are, if you know the SDGs, there are many aspects that can, be dedicated to any initiative of sustainability, and this will put back of, so as a sort of conclusion, accelerating climate action is crucial for development. And I think there are some key messages that can support, which is approved. And this also can be something that can show is looking and taking into consideration sustainable development aspect as a matter of what science is dictating. So I will stop here and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdullah, the Executive Secretary of Intergovernmental on the IPCC. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, and our esteemed speakers for enriching us with this session. And now we would like to invite you all to a short break, during which we invite our esteemed speakers of the coming side events to come to the podium. Thank you.
يعد
السلام. Please have seated. We will start after 5 minutes, so you can have a seat.
Assalamu alaikum. We welcome everyone to the Qatar booth and the pavilion at COP27. Today we'll be talking about the sustainability efforts in Qatar throughout 3 different presentations. The first presentation is going to be presented by Mr. Mohammed Al-Marzouqi and Mr. Rahim. They're from Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, and they will talk about how that affects climate change and environment. And the second presentation is from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, and the engineer Obey and engineer Awad will be representing the efforts of Qatar to achieve climate change. And the last presentation will be by Mr. Saud from Qatar Free Zone, and it's going to talk about the sustainability effort as Qatar Free Zone. Now I would like to welcome the representatives of Qatar Civil Aviation Authority.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, and thank you for being here, and thank you for having me. Today we are going to present our efforts, the QCAA effort, Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, in the environmental protection and climate change field. I will be starting the presentation, and then I will be followed by my colleague Mohammed Al-Marzouqi to present the remaining part. First of all, I want to present to you the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority. It's a regulatory body that oversights the Qatar Civil Aviation industry, and it was established in 2001 in accordance with law number 16 of 2001. The Qatar Civil Aviation Authority implements the provision of the states mentioned in Law 15 in accordance with the government mission to develop a safe, effective, and sustainable civil aviation system with all what it contains. And the main responsibilities of Qatar Civil Aviation Authority are mentioned before you. I won't read all of this, but since we are in climate change context and in environmental context, the main, let's say, goal of all departments and all sections is to integrate the environmental perspective into it and in all our initiatives and measures in that field. The aviation environmental protection driver and spirit within the Qatar Civil Aviation Authority addresses the aviation environmental issues under an umbrella of laws and regulations that inspire innovation and encourage, rather than stifle, one of the fastest national aviation industry growth in the world, because we have a high rate of growth, and we don't want to, let's say, stop that growth by initiatives that aims to stop climate change, aims to environmental sustainability, but has a negative effect on our efforts to grow more and more. We have to balance these two perspectives in all our initiatives and measures that we take. As I have mentioned, now I will present you, the umbrella of laws and how our vision and our, let's say, policy comes from top down with regard to overseeing the national industry or the civil aviation industry. Our top, let's say, is the Constitution, where in Article 33 mentioned that the state shall preserve the environment and its natural balance in order to achieve comprehensive and sustainable development for all generations. And from these provisions, then, we have guidance from regulation, which is the Constitution, then to try to implement the environmental in all our actions, initiatives, projects. The one that comes out of 2002, where we have a set of provisions that regulate the environmental protection. And then our, let's say, is the Qatar National Vision 2030, where we have to take a harmony between economic growth, social development, and environmental protection. Qatar Civil Aviation Authority looks through its policies in the field of environmental protection to mitigate the environment of the industry, a sustainable aviation system in the state of Qatar. And these, let's say, four pillars to be taken into account in all our actions. And the two, let's say, saying that we mentioned here are from the Qatar National Vision 2030, where we have economic development and protection of the environment are two demands, neither of which should be sacrificed of the other. And the other one is environment development, management is the management of the environment such that there is harmony between economic growth, social development, and environmental protection. Then with these guidelines from our highest regulations and laws, we have to pay sustainability in the aviation sector in the state of Qatar. And now we go down to our level, the level of Qatar Civil Aviation Authority, the regulation that we set for the industry in the state. Then the to reduce the impact of carbon emissions on climate. We have the local environment, which is the airport and its vicinity, where we have to limit or reduce the impact of emissions on local air quality. It means in the airport, at the airport and the surroundings area, limit the number of people, significant aircraft airport noise, and avoid impact at the vicinity of airport, surface water, groundwater. And we have in local environment, which is the implementation of reduce, reuse, recycle strategy. And there was a presentation yesterday that went deep in these four, and explained, I mean, how it has successfully gone in these four. And last, we have the wildlife protection, where zero towards the illegal trade of endangered wildlife. These are the main component of our environmental strategy and policy within the QCAA. But now this is the situation with regard to regulation in our but there is an international component, and as you know, Qatar is a small country with domestic flight. All our flights are international, and we have to consider the international and the global in all our strategies and policies and initiatives. As you might know, the aviation industry represents 2% of emissions in the world. And from the 2% of the aviation industry, we have 1.7, we have 1.3 is for the international aviation, and 0.7 is for the domestic. Then and the world under ICAO is striving for negative impact on national transport and to reduce the impact of 2% of the global CO2 emissions. The international aviation fuel consumption is expected to grow somewhere between 2.8 and 4 times by 2040. There was a gap during the corona pandemic, but now the aviation industry is bound, and the studies shows that between 2023 and 2024, there will be a bounce back to the track and to the growth as it was before 2020. If we can see the impact of the international aviation environment, where the global aviation industry, we have said that it's 2% of global emissions. We have the international aviation 1.3% of the 2. And in spite of all the significant technology that has been made in the sector, where jet aircrafts are 80% more fuel efficient for 60s. And with these, I mean, a great advancement, 80% more fuel efficient, still there is a negative impact on the environment from the international aviation industry. Then international aviation fuel consumption is expected to grow, as we have said, between 3 and 4 times by 2040, and projected annual improvement in aircraft fuel efficiency is around 2%. The growth of the industry is 5% per year. Then there is a discrepancy here between the fuel efficiency that's projected and the growth of the aviation industry, and we have to match these two numbers in order to fight the negative impact of the industry. And based on forecasted numbers, the International Civil Aviation has put some aspirational goals, which has been 2% per year fuel efficiency from 2010 and until 2050, and the goal, which is the carbon neutral goal from to try to mitigate the negative impact of the industry. These are, I mean, the two aspirational goals set before 2020 are these, and they will continue with us. But the International Aviation Committee agreed to all these to go for the net zero by 2050 in order to reach the 2050 with a more sustainable aviation industry. We have in the 41st Assembly, the member state, they decided and carbon emissions by 2020, and which means that they, and also at the same time, they agreed on that in addition to the aspirational goal, and they agreed also to and recognize that each state has its special circumstances and respective capabilities to implement. Each state has to take into consideration their special circumstances and capabilities, and they put their own target to participate in achieving the international target, which is 2050. Qatar's flag carrier has joined the commitment of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Then, since our largest and one of the growing industry in the world, we have joined, and our Qatar's flag carrier has joined in order to take the share and participate in international aviation impact. Now we have seen how it is at the international level and how goals. We have seen the set of rules and regulation that we have at our level in Qatar and our level in the authority. Now we are going to see how in Qatar we are combining the set of rules that we have and that we have set out in order to, let's say, mitigate impact nationally in Qatar and take our part internationally. We have, as we have said, the Qatar National Vision 2030, then we have the aviation environmental policy, and the carbon emission reduction plan for aviation, and guidelines of the ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. And in this plan, carbon emission reduction, we have four measures which are inside the sector, from the where we have to mitigate the CO2 emissions and fly efficiently in the operation, improve the operations in order to reduce the fuel consumption and mitigate the CO2 emissions, and also efficient infrastructure at the airport in order also to mitigate the emission. And lastly, we have the sustainable aviation fuel, using the sustainable aviation fuel in order to mitigate the CO2 emissions. All these four are from inside the industry, but we know, taking % mentioned before and the efficiency before, it's not enough. Then we have thought about a fifth measure, which is the CORSIA, the carbon offsetting and reduction scheme in the international aviation, which will offset any additional CO2 emissions to reach the goal that we have mentioned before. And we have mentioned here the Qatar AA reduction, and now we are going to see what's that report that was prepared by Qatar Civil Aviation Authority. To address carbon emission, Qatar is working on its, we have prepared the first one, we are working on the second version of this, and some other measures and targets that were not part of our previous report, and which will give an update version of for achieving the above mentioned targets mentioned in the then what it is exactly this plan? It, I mean, in state, we have to analyze our current situation with regard to carbon emission from the international aviation and see where we are heading in the next few years, 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, depending on your time. Put it on the timeline. Then in the current state, we need to the current state of the aviation environmental activities and measures, refine already being undertaken in order and identify how the measures will contribute to operational goals mentioned before. And these are standing now. And we can plan and see where we are heading in the future. Progress, identifying additional mitigation measures, showcase and communicate our efforts in this domain. If we need assistance and or then is based on, I mean, all measures that are included in this report are based on 4 pillars. Is invest the new, I mean, new aircraft or technology, new retrofitting of the aircraft, fly. Second one, fly efficiently. It means that are taken by the airline are efficient and take the best ways to fly and minimize the fuel and all the operations that are taking place in the airport and air navigation service provider. The second one is built on and use efficient infrastructure, air traffic management, and airport improvement. That's our for the infrastructure. And last one, the fourth, the sustainable aviation fuel. The use of the sustainable aviation fuel, which will mitigate more of negative impact in the coming, let's say, after 15 years, 20 years. Then here I will leave my colleague Mohammed Al-Marzouqi to continue with you and present what's left of the presentation.
Taking us through our national CAA strategies to protect the environment. And as just explained by my colleague Rashid, about the national state action plan for reduction of CO2 emission for international flight. So as just he explained to us that For the state action plan, we need to improve the we need to have new technologies, and we improve the operations, and also to have the alternative fuel from like SAF and LCAF. So the ICAO and its member state has adopted a new, in its 38th assembly, CORSIA, to have like carbon neutral growth from 2020 onward. And even if we implement the three let's say three areas of measures, still we cannot complement the achieving CNG by 2020. So that's why they introduced CORSIA, which is based on carbon market, and and also it was the first global market-based measures scheme for any industry in the sectors. So here's the figures where can show you if we implement the measures through operations, we can reach the red areas, while if we improve also or have a new technology from engines, aircrafts, so we will reach the blue areas, and still we cannot achieve the target of CNG, carbon neutral growth by 2020. And also, if we implement also the sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, still we need to compensate using the CORSIA to be able to achieve reaching the carbon neutral growth from 2020. And by the way, here Qatar was among the first member states who joined CORSIA since 6th of October 2019 from its pilot phase. I will go through the phase later. And here is the CORSIA phases. There is like 3 phases. The first 2 phases is voluntary based, and the remaining was let's say the second phase will be like occupied by 90% of a global RTK revenue per ton kilometers. So here's one thing. One of the important things: the MRV is mandatory from 2019 onward, but the offsetting is voluntary. And also the scheme of CORSIA is route-based measures. So let's say if the state A and the state B is, let's say the state A, B, and C and D is under MRV system. So the airplane operator or the state need to report to ICAO the full flight route. But the offsetting is only mandatory if there is like 2 states are voluntarily participated in CORSIA. Like for example here, the state A is voluntarily participated, and the state B is voluntarily participated in CORSIA or joint CORSIA. This route we need to do the offsetting for it. The other or the route. And here how we can calculate the offsetting requirement. It's a collective offsetting. It's not like by each operators. So for example, for the first, let's say from 2021 up to 2032, it will be like the airplane operator annual CO2 emissions multiplied by the global growth factors, and then we will know the CO2 that we need to do the offsetting for. But from 2023 up to 2035, it will be 50% individual growth and 85% global growth. So let's say the state or the airplane operators need to offset their emissions. So here's the full let's say the full pictures about the implementing CORSIA. We can see here there is an airplane operator. They need to submit their emission monitoring plan, and we have the state. They need to approve the emission monitoring plan. All of these things we need to have like resources and capable people to do it, because it has like, let's say, back and forth with the airplane operator and the state, and then we need to report to the IQ. We do the aggregation emission report and submit it to the IQ through the central CORSIA central registry. So not all the states, like here in the COP process, there is lots of things we want to do it, but we don't have the capabilities. So we need to do the capacity building for it. So what IQ did, they introduced like a program called Act Corsia to support state and assist them to implement Corsia. So from that, Corsia has introduced this program to build up a capacity for the state to enable them and implement Corsia scheme. So we in the state of Qatar, and there's like 17 supporting states in different regions. So in our regions, we were one of the supporting states, and we support states in implementing Corsia, and we receive also training from IKO, and then we go to the focal point from each state and build the capacity for them. I will show you like a few training that we did. So here's the first pictures here up there. It was our first Act Corsia session. It was with a few regional state, focal point from Oman, Iraq, and Iran. It was like the kickoff of our, let's say, long-term capacity building programs. And then due to the pandemic, we were unable to conduct more sessions to build the capacity. So that's why we continue by doing a remote sessions, and we did like sessions for capacity building and trainings, and continuous follow up with the state where we can learn from each other and overcome the challenges that we face. And we conduct a training for Oman, Iraq, and Libya, and Iran, and Kuwait, and also Jordan. So it was like a good experience for us to learn from them and for them to enhance their capabilities to implement Corsia. And also Corsia can by implementing Corsia and through the experience, it can create opportunities. Like Corsia can play the role as a driver to stimulate the carbon markets. For example, in the state of Qatar, we have one of the programs called Global Carbon Council. It was approved by IKO as one of the programs eligible to be under Corsia offsetting programs. So although emissions from international aviation are not considered under the UNFCCC, Corsia has generated a huge mutual interest between the aviation sector and the national and international climate change stakeholders. So here's the bigger pictures and target and way forward to achieve CO2 emission reduction in the aviation industry. So we have target of carbon neutral growth from 2020 onward, mainly Corsia, and achieving net zero by 2050. So to achieve this and to implement it, Corsia was implemented in Qatar as a part of a broader strategies that explained earlier by Rashid to achieve a sustainable aviation system in the state of Qatar, and Qatar was among the first, as I mentioned earlier, state who joined Corsia. And also what we are looking is to build a robust aviation carbon offsetting scheme while we have all the stakeholders. So we have the QCA and we have the IQ, and also we have the let's say the operators or the people who will be the stakeholders for implementing Corsia, like aviation operators, verifiers, carbon market, accreditation body as well. So we need to build the system to enable us to achieve our goals from like 20% annual fuel efficiency improvement, and also to achieve the commitment of net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And thank you for listening.
And if you have any questions, feel free to ask Mr. Rashid or Mr. Muhammad in regards to their presentation. Any questions? Okay. Thank you so much to the presenters. Thank you for your time. And thank you for Qatar Civil Aviation Authority for presenting this presentation. And now I would like to hand the floor to Engineer Ubay and Engineer Baligh from the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change to discuss their efforts.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for being here today. Today we will talk about the efforts and initiatives of Climate Change Department, me and my colleague Ubay. As you know, climate change is undoubtedly one of the serious challenges of our time. The state of Qatar has placed climate change at the forefront of its priorities. Climate change, one of the most important serious challenges of our time. As you see here, Qatar did several efforts through the past years, starting from 2002 until now. In 2002, we have implemented environmental protection law, and you see here different efforts, but the most important of them was in 2011, the National Plan for Energy Efficiency. In 2012, Qatar hosted COP18. There were two outcomes from COP18, one regarding the economic diversification and the other one for the second commitment period for developed countries. In 2019, we had the largest CCS facility in the MENA region. And in 2021, we have worked on National Environment and Climate Change Strategy and on NCCAB, which is the action plan for climate change. We have submitted also the nationally determined contributions that reflects our commitment towards Paris Agreement. Ubay will continue the other of the presentation.
Thank you very much, Baligh. Okay. As Baligh explained, we have a National Climate Change Action Plan, and we have the Qatar Environmental Strategy for Environment and Climate Change. We should thank our operators from Qatar Energy for hosting this nice pillars of the Qatar Energy of the strategy. Of course, the National Climate Change Action Plan has 36 mitigation measures and more than 300 adaptation projects. For the Qatar Environment Strategy, we focused on GHG emissions and air quality. We have large scale projects like the carbon capture and storage, which will reduce more than 9 million tons of CO2 annually. It will be enhanced. It will be captured and it will be used as carbon capture. And we have Qatar Energy, Kahroma has a big project for, to produce 800 megawatt of solar energy. In the biodiversity, we have a couple of large projects in the water, circular economy, waste management, and land use. So this strategy is on top of the other small-scale strategies that we have in the ministry. And as you see here, the National Climate Change Action Plan has been built on the strategic plans of economic diversification in Qatar National Vision. Qatar National Vision has 3 pillars, as most of you might know here: human development, social development, economic development, environmental development. So we focus on here. We, as Ministry of Environment, the strategies, the efforts that Baligh explained for you, it's all satisfy this pillar. Of course, the National Development Strategy of Qatar was produced from 2012 to 2016. The second one, 2018 to 2022 here. And now we are working with the third development strategy, which will cover from 2023 to 2030 vision. So these both are connected. And of course, all the projects and initiatives we have satisfy the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And here is the core emissions that we have, National Climate Change Action Plan. Here, as you can see, I mentioned the 36 mitigation measures. We have, it covers all sectors, oil and gas, transportation, Qatar, power and water, as well as the other, which includes building and construction. And of course, we have to thank all our companies, intergovernmental companies that worked with us. We worked for 1 year on this project. We had more than 200 meetings to satisfy the projects. For the adaptation, of course, we have a cooperation with Qatar University, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, and some NGOs, as well as Qatar Foundation and all the universities that satisfy the project. So we have 160 projects here under Qatar Foundation. Qatar University, 60 projects, Ministry of Municipality and Environment and Climate Change, 50, and then we have 30 for Ashghal and other projects. And of course, since we are the government and we are the ministry, so we have the governance. We are working on putting a governance structure to implement these projects. And now we start, which is linked to the MRV project. So we had agreement with Qatar, with the GGGI, Green Global Growth Institute, to work on some of the projects that we had. These are some of the activities that we had during 2022. We established more than 5 workshops. One of them was capacity building for available before we come to the negotiations. So in order to give them the experience and the ability, the history of the Paris Agreement and the Kyoto and all the details, in order to raise their information before going into the rooms of the negotiation. So under our strategies of the governmental sector, we are working on 4 different projects with GGI: Qatar Green Growth Pathways, Climate Adaptation Planning, MRV, which I will focus more, and circular economy promotion. For Qatar Green Growth Pathways, we will make indications for the country and for the governmental institutions and for the private sector to focus on some of the main pillars or the main weakness of or the main projects that we have. For climate adaptation, this will be an introduction to make NAPs. We are working on this National Adaptation Plan of Qatar. So this will help us satisfy the NAPs. And circular economy, of course, it will be it will have some more information about the water reuse, recyclable products, and we try to get some energy from the waste as most of the countries are working on. So under the MRV project, what is GHG emissions? We as a country signing the Paris Agreement, we want to have a high resilience of data. So we will, in cooperation with all our sectors and companies, we make institutional arrangements to establish a system or database to get the emissions from Qatar Energy, from transportation sector, from Hamad Port, airport, and from all companies to collect this information, which will help us to make the reporting. So from the source, GHG emissions, the 3 main, of course, GHG emissions. Then we will, this will help us make the reports that we have to work on, like the national communication, and now we are working on the second one. Baligh mentioned we did the first one in 2015. The final update report as well. It's one of the products coming very soon from our ministry. And then after 2024, we work on the PTR, the transparency framework. And we are, as a country, aware of the all articles under Paris Agreement. Of course, Article 13 satisfies the enhanced transparency framework, which will help Qatar have a resilience and a good data. So the reporting for developing countries under current system and PA enhanced transparency framework. So as I told you, we are working with the national communication and BUR. The transparency framework is helping us to satisfy high resilient data. As most of you might know, we have different types of MRV, national level, sectoral level, and facility level. And of course, we have scope 1, 2, 3. So we are trying our best in the ministry to have a high level of accuracy of data. And of course, for the national communication, we have the first one, the first national communication data was among the tier 1 and 2. The same will be applicable to the second national communication. We are on the stage now to track the NDC with our project. So this is an example of the sheets that we will distribute very soon to all sectors in order to measure how far did we go with our plan to reduce the 25% reduction, which is applicable to the 37 million ton of CO2. So in conclusion, we are doing our best in Qatar to satisfy the projects and to make the plans, to make the reports that UNIT will see apply for developing countries. We are doing our best to have high level of reporting and database. So that's all. I hope you have some questions. Thank you very much. No question?
Thank you for the good presentation. I am Nada Abdelaziz from Higher Council for Environment in Khartoum State. I am manager for environmental impact assessment. I have two questions, okay? Number one, it is not explained how to manage or how to monitoring the carbon dioxide and what is the method can be used. This is number one. Number two, I attend yesterday for electric vehicles, you know. I think it is not a method to reduce the carbon dioxide because it has very environmental impact. You know, the battery, how disposal in environment area because it is contains high, heavier matters, you know. So in my opinion, it is not good to can be used for reducing the carbon monoxide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For the second question, I agree with you. This is right, but of course, Qatar Energy Company, they had a feasibility study to study where they will put this CO2 and how they can use. So we have some projects from the industry to reuse the CO2. We will not keep it as it is. So it will be reused to produce some projects. Even we had expansion of ammonia and fertilizer. So it's one of the products that will get some of the CO2, as well as our research people. They are taking all environmental and product use issues into consideration. So we are working on this. We know it's very difficult to use this amount, but we are doing our best to save our environment. From environmental point of view, of course, this is valid. And Thank you for raising this question. And for the first one, we are making a database. The method we will do, we will get a database, and after implementing a governance structure, we, as a ministry, will be responsible for getting high resilient data from all the sectors annually, and in order to help us satisfy the reports. Thank you very much for interesting question.
Good. I wanted to know, how are you empowering your cities to do the reporting as well? I hear you talking about the sectors that they're reporting. How about you decentralize the reporting? Like, I'm from South Africa, in Durban. Each city is responsible for creating their own database and then collectively report to the national government. Are you doing any empowerment to capacitate the cities to do to establish their own database system to report?
Thank you very much. I like this kind of technical questions, actually. This enhances the discussion. And yes, in Qatar, they are under the Ministry of Municipality, and we are another ministry, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. But the same way that we will cooperate with energy sector, with power sector, with building sector, we will cooperate with the cities. And recently, the cities, I think all of the cities, they got awarded by international organizations for being environmentally friendly, and they have a lot of initiatives from their structure. Every year they have some initiatives to reduce the emissions and to widen the awareness. So we are aware of all this, and still we are on the first stage of making the MRV. So I wanted to introduce. Still we are in the beginning, in the first 2 weeks of the project. Next year, if you ask me, I will give this. Thank you very much.
Any more questions?
Thank you. Regarding to training for Corsa. Yeah, Corsa.
Corsia.
Corsa training.
Yeah.
You mentioned about you have trained in Iraq as well, yeah?
Training for Corsia?
Yeah, in Iraq. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Is it our staff from Kurdistan region of Iraq participating in that training or not?
No, I don't think. It was from the CAA in Tehran and some...
Iraq. Iraq.
Iraq.
Iraq. Yeah.
No, it was from the CAA in Baghdad.
In Baghdad, just
yes.
Not in Erbil.
No, they were from the CAA in Baghdad.
So what about Erbil Airport? Is there any opportunity for them to participate in such as training?
Yeah, this kind of training are prepared, I mean, in bilateral agreement under the ICAO. And if there will be a discussion, and it's mostly directed towards CAAs. And the CAAs, they invite their stakeholders in airports and other airlines because they are part in the implementation process. But there is always opportunities and room to set up sessions of ACT Corsia.
As you know, the Erbil International Airport, one of the active airport in Iraq. So it is necessary for the staff to participate in such a training.
Okay, and there is a possibility to participate with CAA in Baghdad, or
We have to
we
discuss with them.
we can I mean discuss this with you offline, and we can find an arrangement.
For next time, please be aware of that. If
Yeah.
they participate, if you have another training,
Yes.
make sure our region, Erbil International Airport staff, will participate in such a
For
training.
sure,
Thanks.
for sure. Thank you.
We would like to thank Dr. Ubay, Engineer Ubay and Engineer Baligh for their presentation. And thank you, Mr. Rashid, for answering the question. We will give the floor to Mr. Saud from Qatar Free Zone to present the presentation.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for being here. I'll try my best and very patient with us. So before I start discussing the Qatar free zones, I'll discuss why should you come to Qatar in the first place. For us, as the Qatar free zones, we Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, as well as other entities in the country to fulfill their goals. The ministry works very hard trying to push for policies and trying to get us to become much more greener and much more sustainable. So we are here as a catalyst for change. We are here to provide the solutions to these entities, not just locally, but globally as well. So the opportunities for growth are limitless in Qatar. You are connected globally, you have got world-class infrastructure, you've got technological advanced, a stable environment, ambitious vision, and a very, very powerful knowledge economy. With regards to the supply chain, there's a lot of diversification. You can reach over 60% of the world's population within 8 hours of flying time and 5 days of sailing time. This is very good for companies coming in, especially ones that are trying to ship perishable goods, anyone trying to ship the products as well, because we also work with product-based companies as well as service-based companies. This is something quite important I'd like to highlight. For Qatar Airways, they've got cold chain capabilities as well. With coming to food and agri-tech, it's very essential for them to be shipping their products efficiently and quickly. So with the cold chain capabilities of Qatar Airways, they are able to handle 1.4 million tons of annual cargo, as well as providing a quick ramp transfer. Another important aspect we have in Qatar is the smart cities of the future. Masharab downtown is a $5.5 billion mixed-use district covering 310 meters squared. It's regarded as the downtown, embedding smart city technology and connectivity from the start. This is and the same thing with Lusail City. It's a $45 billion smart city covering 38 kilometers squared. So these are quite important solutions for us here. And also Qatar is committed to providing clean energy with the smart transportation system, with the electric buses that are being used, as well as the solar-powered electric charging stations that are not connected to the national grid. It's using the solar power as well to charge these buses. As I mentioned, the knowledge-based economy, I'm sure some of you have been to some of our side events. A lot of these universities are not just pushing out students, but they're providing the platform for research and development to take place with different entities. So it's the universities connecting with different companies and ministries, providing different reports, research into sustainable change and climate change as well. As well as this, the free zone is committed to building a greener future. The Ras Bufantas free zone, which is the airport free zone, has been awarded the Best Green Project, as well as getting a 3-star GSAS certification. These are also some of the benefits you can get. You get energy efficient facilities, electric vehicles, and also a sustainable community which includes sustainable food tech, sustainable banking alternatives, and an electric vehicles manufacturer that's helping you provide different solutions as well. So now I'll move to free zones. Our main purpose was to provide long-term business solutions while supporting Qatar's future economy and This includes also the sustainable and greener policies that the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change are looking into. At the same time, we are a regulatory authority. So whenever a new entity comes in or a new sector is involved, there's all with regards to our regulations. And it's tailored with regards to the different operations we have in the free zones. We are strategically located in different locations. We've got the Ras Boufantas free zone, which is by the airport. We've got the Al Hol free zone, which has direct access to Hamad Port, as well as having our own port as well. We also have real estate solutions in downtown Doha. Some companies don't want to be located closely to the airport or closely to the free zone in Hamad Port. They would like to have somewhere more central. So you've got as a solution. With regards to the gateway for the companies, this is some of the incentives we have. So you have 100% foreign ownership. You've got highly skilled workforce availability through the graduations and through the graduate. You've got 0 customs duties on imports, 20-year tax holiday. You've got state-of-the-art facilities and regulations to serve foreign direct investment as well. Some of the other things we have the strategic location, as I mentioned, located close to the port and to the airport. You've got diverse real estate where companies can start off with just $1,000 a year, where you can have your own R&D office, where you can do your own market research and business research as well, all the way to having your service land to build your facilities. There are partnership opportunities as well. We've had companies partner with Qatar Airways, BN Media, Ooredoo, and a lot of companies are working as well with the Supreme Committee for the World Cup. Another important aspect we have, which is something of a catalyst from our side, is the funding opportunities. We do provide funding opportunities to certain SMEs and certain specific strategic sectors. These are some of the property and land plot solutions we have. So you can get your own custom-built facilities. You have your own industrial warehouses that we have ready built, which you can fit out. You've got the service land. You've got state-of-the-art offices and plug-and-play facilities. All of these solutions have had G-Star ratings. So all of these, the GSAS ratings. So all of these are sustainable. There is a lot of benefits with regards to 40% of water saving and also as well as electrical. Most of our buildings do cut down a lot on electricity because it's all open with glass. So it's a fully open glass building which uses natural lighting. Also, we have our dedicated investor relations team. A lot of coming in. So they will probably not know much about the business landscape. So we provide help with visa and ID issuing, bank account setup, utility setup for facilities, business permits, custom supports, and relocation. A lot of these companies who do have previous hubs would like to have a new hub within Doha. So we do help with the relocation and expansion as well. And also you have opportunities connecting to the smart city supply chain. You've got mobility, urban planning, the energy environment with regards to water and waste management. You've got security and control, social and public services like 24/7 healthcare, e-learning and e-services, as well as smart governance as well. This is some of the highlights we'd like to show, or some of the initiatives we've been working on. One of them is emerging tech. And we do a lot of work with regards to cloud services. And also we have some of the examples of Google Cloud establishing the first MENA cloud region in QFZ and launching its Google Training Academy. A lot of is provide training and solutions for entities with regards to sustainable development. We understand the importance of starting a sustainable company, but we also understand the importance of transitioning to a sustainable company. So these companies do provide these solutions for already set up entities. And the same thing with Gosan. They're one of the first electric assembly companies here in Qatar, and they're working closely to push on with the national goals as well. Also, with regards to advanced mobility, we do understand that there is a lot with regards to vehicles. There's around 1.7 million registered motor vehicles in Qatar and 30,000+ buses and taxis. So we do understand that we, being the free zones, we need to push ahead with our policies and become a catalyst for this change. Also, you've got electric, connected, and autonomous solutions. So you have these different solutions with regards to vehicles. And also, you've got different solutions with regards to different opportunities, like establishing a regional headquarter, serving the MENA and wider regions, and leveraging Google's platform and its data centers as well. We also have a dedicated test track in our facilities. This way, companies who are producing electric vehicles and who are looking into more hydrogen-based solutions, they do have a test facility within the Qatar free zones as well. Also, we have aligning with the National Climate Change Action Plan and the national goals. We recently signed an MOU with the Qatar's Ministry of Municipality on food security and dedicating advanced agriculture technology as well. So, for example, we've got the Siraj 1 solar power plant, which is a $466 million project, which is working on providing solar energy for the food and agri-tech sector. In its lifetime, this will cut down 26 million tons of carbon dioxide reduction, and this will help also with regard to the sustainable goals globally as well. Another important thing we have is the sustainable food production. We just recently partnered with Eat Just, a San Francisco-based food and technology company that's producing its first ever cultivated meat facility in the region. As of now, it's still in the process of getting all of its permits and health permits ready, but it will be by the beginning of 23 to mid-23, it will begin working and producing its cultivated meat. So basically, starting your company is quite easy for us. You define your project, you have the application and approval process, and then you've got the registration, leasing and licensing. Roughly, this would take around 4 to 6 weeks to start, and it depends on the size of your company, how long it will take for you to be registered and licensed with us. Thank you so much for listening, and if there is any questions, also on a note, the presentation could be, I have the presentation copy, so if anybody wants the presentation, you can scan a barcode and I'll send it forward.
Any questions?
Thank you for your actually good presentation. Regarding to transportation, especially electric buses, we are from Ministry of Transportation and Communication of Kurdistan Regional Government of Iraq. So we have a project, it's called City Bus. The project is ready, as design of the project is ready. To what extent could you collaborate or cooperate with our ministry to implement such as projects in Kurdistan region, especially in Erbil city, capital of Kurdistan region?
Okay, so can you, I'll read the lesson. So you want to know how we can help as the Qatar Free Zones to implement your project?
Yes.
Within
Erbil, yeah.
In Erbil, okay. For us as the Qatar Free Zones, our main direction is foreign direct investment. So we are looking for companies to start a hub in Qatar. And from there, they can probably export to other regions as well. For example, we have Gosan, which is a French company that partnered with a Qatari company, Al Atiyah Motors. That collaboration, they opened a hub in Qatar where they are assembling electric vehicles and they're exporting it. So from what I know, they're exporting to New Zealand, Australia, and Japan as of now, as well as serving the local market. Hamad Port is using those vehicles as well. With regards to Erbil, I think there is a possibility for collaboration, opening up a possibility, and there's always a way for us to speed that process as well. The electric mobility and autonomous vehicle cluster is quite an important cluster for us in the free zones. And it's not just to cater Qatar, you're catering the region and globally as well. So we can take this offline, so I can discuss with you further the different incentives. At the same time, we do have a report coming out end of this year. We're quite a new, we've only been open since 2018, so this will be our first sustainable report coming out by the end of this year. The transparency of our policies could be also used in your project as well. You can look at how we overcame those problems as well. So there will be some form of lessons learned that you can look into as well. But we can take this offline because there's a lot I can discuss regarding the mobility cluster we have. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Any more questions? Thank you so much for attending the sustainability talk that serves 3 presentations from 3 companies and initiatives in Qatar. We would like to invite you to take a look around our booth and see Qatar achievement to sustainability. Thank you so much.